pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I meant it tonight. Oh, all right. We need to, sorry about that, approve the agenda as amended. The agenda has been amended per the request of a board member. Previous item 2.1 has been moved to has been moved to 5A. Need a motion.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we need to approve the minutes of the October 20th, 2020. Sorry, guys, sorry. It's one of those nights.
And now it'll be the consent agenda as amended.
Okay.
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Susan said hold on.
Brittany.
Okay.
Should I be doing that since I'm in your seat?
Yes.
You take his role?
That's right. No, because I don't want to be Kathy, so.
What's wrong with Kathy? Man?
Nothing's wrong with Kathy. I can't do her job. That's the problem.
Susan, we did not have any audience delegations, correct?
That is correct.
Just a note on the substitute report. I think it's great that we're getting so many community members. I guess they're volunteering and taking the class, or how is that working on the substitute?
Just have more-
Varies on
Yeah, I was going to say it just
know.
varies, and yeah, I can't point to any one specific thing that's improved. We improved the pay, and then they changed the rules on, but we're still having difficulty filling in our building. So
Okay, student recognition for this evening. Harrison Maxwell and Kyle Minching. Look at that.
Hi, my name is Kyle Minching. I'm involved in football, basketball, show choir, key club, science club, and NHS. I'm the president of that. Probably the most influential person of my career, which is pretty hard to narrow, has probably been my dad and my mom. My parents have really helped me push to be my best, but it's hard to narrow that down to two people because my friends really influenced me, pushed me to be the best in athletics and things, and my teachers all helped me to try to pursue what I want to be, which is mostly in the science field. A funny story from my high school career would probably be dating back to my freshman year when my older brother was on the football team with me. So the seniors had this thing where they'd make it so the freshmen had to go shirtless on the coldest day of the year for football practice, and it just so happened one day it was just freezing rain and the coldest it's been in a while, and seniors were all like, the freshmen had to do it, and so basically the coaches got involved and said we didn't have to, but at the end of practice everyone was just sliding around and having a good time in the snow and the cold rain. So where do I see myself in 5 years? Hopefully I'll have graduated high school. Still a possibility I could fail. But I hope to be off of my 2-year mission that I want to go on for my church, and I want to be in college at undecided, and I want to be studying biomedical science. So my favorite middle school or elementary school teacher was not from this school because I moved here my sophomore year, but it was probably Mr. Mead. He was also one of my coaches. He was a social studies teacher. he was really funny and he was tall, and we always had the best basketball and football practices because he'd always get involved with us and try to have a good time. So he'd actually play basketball with us, and I don't know, it was competitive and it was fun. He always pushed me to be my best, and I just really liked him as a teacher.
Hi, my name is Erson Maxwell. I am part of the Harrisonville volleyball team. I've been a part of it for 4 years. I would say that the most influential person to my school career has probably been my parents, because they have just really pushed me to be better, not only in school but also in athletics, and helped me to juggle everything that comes with high school, so that's been really helpful. Along with all of my teachers who have also pushed me to be better academically. A funny or embarrassing high school story would be from my sophomore year of volleyball, when we were at practice one day and Kate Eichhorst and I were not doing anything. We were off to the side of the court, but we were apparently dancing, and Coach Lyons, or Coach Bailey now, was not having it, so she kicked us out of the gym for dancing. And Kate and I were about in tears when they came out to get us from the commons because we got kicked out of practice. And I was mortified. And they thought it was the funniest thing. But Kate and I did not think it was so funny. Where do I see myself in 5 years? Hopefully graduated from high school and most of the way through college, hopefully. I'm wanting to study psychology, specifically sports psychology. I want to become a sports psychology consultant and hopefully work with college or high school athletes. And in 5 years, maybe be settling down with somebody and starting a family soon. My favorite elementary or middle school teacher was Miss Freeze, who was my HATS teacher. I joined HATS whenever I was in 4th or 5th grade, and I was with her until my 8th grade year, so we were together for quite a bit of time. And since it was for academically talented students, so it was a class that really pushed me academically, and it challenged me to be a better student and definitely prepared me for high school, and she really helped with that as well.
Oh, that's fun. Your son, Paul.
Yeah, he talks a lot, so wears me out.
Okay, moving on to communications. Anybody have any questions about any of this? Okay. Monthly information items. Donation acknowledgement, Paul?
So we're happy to report that we received 10 sets of slightly used fire gear donated from a parent of 2 of our students, Mr. Tyler Gross. The estimated value would be around $5,000. So we're extremely grateful for this generous donation to our fire programs.
School board candidate filing. The election of school board members is held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday of April on Municipal Election Day, which will be April 6th, 2021. Qualified applicants for the board may file for office during business hours in the superintendent's office beginning the 16th Tuesday prior to the election until the 11th Tuesday prior to the election. For the upcoming election, school board candidates filing will begin Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 from 8 until 4 and will close January 19th, 2021 at 5 p.m. Offices to be filled are 2 3-year positions. Board members whose term expires are Doug Alexander and Doug Meyer. Updated curriculum placements.
Now this is supposed to be 2I, right?
Yes,
Correct.
that is correct. Okay, we need a motion. No, we.
You can ask the administration to
If we're-
present,
okay.
but if we've got questions, we probably need a motion first.
Okay, if there are questions, we need a motion first.
Move to approve the updated curriculum placements as presented.
Placements.
Placements or placemats?
Placemats.
Sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have the memo on there explaining the process that the teams went through for updating the curriculum placemats. But Mrs. Meeks gladly volunteered her services this evening.
I bet she
To
did.
answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Meeks.
You're welcome.
I had some questions, not that many, because there was a lot of information presented. And I know it's covered several years of information for a baseline. So my question is, what is the new updated standard for our students based on the results from 16-17? Because you had the results from the previous years. So now we're going into this year and the upcoming years with our new standards, I guess you would say. And what is the, I guess what I want to know is, we keep changing these standards. How do we measure what our kids are supposed to be doing?
Yeah, we didn't change the standards. We just look at all of the data that we collect from MAP testing to our common formative assessments and make sure that we are assessing what we think is the most important
Right.
of all the Missouri learning standards.
Right.
And so, because we are always learning in this process, we want to keep coming back to them, make sure that we are picking the right ones or we
Right.
are choosing the right ones. And so, this is just a way to go back and revisit them and say, okay, we picked these 3 years ago, or are these still the ones we want to make sure we prioritize in the year? And then as we go through that, again, we have those common formative assessments that we use in the classroom, plus the MAP testing to measure how we're doing on those standards.
And so could you tell from the previous years how the students are doing compared to, like, were they absorbing what they need to be as the years go on? I mean, we have these standards, but I can't tell from the information presented how the students are doing.
Right. These placemats just tell teachers and the community what we're prioritizing. The
Okay.
work that is done to make sure that we are addressing them and how we're addressing them are done through our data team meetings that teachers are meeting each week to talk about the standards.
Okay.
So if my son is in a unit on time, then that team is talking about time and how he's doing, and we are addressing those standards at that time.
Okay.
Instead of waiting until the end of the year and saying, well, they didn't get 5, we're trying to address them while we're teaching them. We go through the intervention process and making sure they have them before we move on to the next skill.
So were they changed that much from the 16-17 time frame?
Some were. If you notice, I think it's 2nd or 3rd grade, really downsized to only 4 standards. And what they did was, standards are, you have your broad standard and then broken down into very minuscule skills. The first time they did that, they used the minuscule skills, and it was really hard to assess because it was so small. So they went to the broader standards, and it encompassed more skills. And so it looks like they're not doing very much because there's 4 standards, but really they're doing a lot within those standards. So
Okay.
some of them had those conversations about how they wanted to order their placemats, and some didn't make hardly any changes. But it was that conversation that needed to happen among not only grade levels, but then vertical teams.
Okay. I just wanted to get some feedback because when it's presented in just a statistical form, I need to have some verbal information. And I appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
Because I just want to make sure, I know we have all these things in place, but I want to see how it relates to the kids' learning.
Right, and that's what we're looking at each month. You know, through Master Connect, that's why I really like that program, is we can look at it by standard, how the grade level's doing, how classrooms are doing,
Yeah.
and how students are doing. And
Okay.
so we encourage the principals to look at that each month, as well as I do also.
Okay.
So it's a quicker response then. Okay.
And it's by standards instead of just an ABCD.
So it lines up with the tests that they take and the state requirements
Right.
and all of
Well, except we didn't take them last year.
Kind of,
We
sort
won't have those. We won't have those this year to look
that.
at.
Well, not
but-
this year, right,
but-
but usually.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Christy. Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Where did I leave off? There you have it. Assessment and evaluation of district programs.
Okay. In October, the only really notable things were we did receive our CARES meal delivery money. It totaled between the delivery money, which we asked for reimbursement when we were doing those deliveries from March until June, and then also we got CARES relief fund dollars as well. totaling $214,000. So that came in pretty handy. The basic formula and classroom trust fund are both just slightly below year-to-date projections. Year-to-date expenditures are about $20,000 greater than the same period last year, so we're running really close to where we were. Ending projected fund balance percentage is 16.8%, and total cash investments are $17.6 million. Again, $11.6 million of that is bond proceeds.
Very good.
Kathy, do you have any way to project what our percentage will be next month? I know we'll be starting to get some tax money in, but 16 is pretty low.
Yeah, we'll probably go at least between 20 and 25 is where I would think.
Next
we get
month?
we get a big chunk of money in.
Okay.
And
Great.
part of the problem too, Nancy, is so each year, especially during financial difficulties, they prorate that formula early on. So we're only getting about 88% of our state money that we're supposed to get.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, the governor withheld money in July for this fiscal year, so we're behind on state money, and we hope it catches up because all the indicators, economic indicators, are really positive in the first quarter. So, or third quarter, I guess. I call it the first quarter because it's our fiscal year in July. But I think as the year catches on, we'll catch up in state funds too. So hopefully.
Yes. Thank you.
And before we proceed, I got a point of order that I want to make sure I'm not confused with. We took something off of the consent agenda. I moved it to A, but we haven't talked about it. Did I miss
We
that
just
when we
did.
approved?
Yeah, we
just
talked
talked
about
about
it. That's what Christy was.
It's moved on.
I is the food application.
No.
Summer food
It was
program.
I in the consent agenda.
We moved it
down
on your
to A.
electronic version. We moved it, Bing, so it's already in there.
Yeah.
So it moved to 5A.
Right.
But on my agenda, 5A is update curriculum placemats, which we just did.
Right.
See, but this paper copy is the original copy. This is the pre-amended version. The amended version's already in your computer. It's already updated in your computer.
It was 2I.
2I.
Yes. and
Oh,
now
two.
we moved
Okay,
up.
that's where I'm getting confused.
Yes,
That's why I
okay.
needed that. So it was J here
No, it was,
It was
I.
I.
on the original.
I.
Yeah, it's 2I.
Oh, okay, that's what we moved in.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I keep getting confused because and on this one, I is the food
5A.
program, but it didn't
Yep.
get moved down.
That
Gotcha.
moved everything down.
Thank you for that. Now I've got it.
Okay, and then the 2021 Special Education Program Evaluation.
Wait.
Hello. So
Hold on
hopefully.
just a second, Annie.
Okay.
That was after Kathy's.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
It's number 2 on.
Hopefully you had a chance to look at the program evaluation that I typed up. Some of it is similar to the previous one. I think we do it every 2 years. Every other year I do a program evaluation. So I'm just going to talk about some of the highlights, some of the great things that with and for our students. So our Life Careers program, on the previous time that we did a program evaluation, we were working on completely restructuring that program. We have successfully restructured that program. We have completely revamped our scope. We have, right now we have 5 sending kiddos, I think, that come to us. Actually 4, one is virtual. So we have Belton, Ray-Peck, and Pleasant Hill students currently coming to the program as well. Some of them are in the 18 to 21 category. Some of them are still the sophomores, juniors, seniors. With that, I think most of you have been able to go and visit the Royal Roast. So we were able to open the coffee shop last year, get that going. It is very neat if you haven't been there. They do take orders, but you have to order it and then you don't get to go there anymore. Instead, they deliver it. So that has been a new adventure for our kids. Instead of getting to go out into the community, we are trying to find things that we can work on and structure internally without causing additional exposure or any type of safety concerns for those kiddos. So it has looked a little bit different this year, but since our last program evaluation has completely changed, we have been able to develop kind of a scope and sequence of the skills that we want kids to have with that program, which is awesome. Several years ago, back when I was a teacher, so it has been several years ago, the district bought iPads for mostly life skills and speech and language pathologists. So those had lived their life, and Mike pretty much looked at me and said, these can no longer be updated ever again. So once they're dead, they're dead. So we were able to budget and provide 10 new iPads to replace our old ones for our life skills and speech and language, speech and language pathologists to use for communication. Most of those devices are used for our kids that struggle with communication and need some sort of program for that.
I mean, just hacking up a bone.
That's fine. That's fine. That's attention-seeking behavior, by the way, and so we'll reflect. Well, that'll be reflected.
On an IEP.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take data on that. So we March through May presented a very unique challenge for the special education department. So I can say that I feel like we successfully developed and integrated special education services through virtual learning, and we continue to do that. That was a unique challenge on how you're going to meet services and minutes and individualize every aspect of a kid's day without them having necessarily devices or access. And I will say that I feel like my department did an amazing job meeting that need. Overall, I feel like parents and students got what they need, and we had teachers who would go and deliver things to their doors because they weren't able to. We needed to accommodate assignments that needed to be physically done before they could work on it. So they did an amazing job through that process. We continue to conduct and facilitate successful IEP and eligibility staffings through virtual platforms. We use SpedTrack for our IEP software, and they have rolled out an electronic signature that our attorneys and the state recognize as valid, because before we would have to send the notice and we couldn't do anything until we received the signature. Well, when you're all virtual and everything is shut down, that presented challenges as well. Also, we have added Brittany Banks, the district behavior coach. That has been an extremely successful addition to the department and to the district, because we have been able to take a much more aggressive, proactive approach to kiddos. Even right now, she is working with a student that is not even a special education student, but that needs that behavior intervention prior to looking at a referral. And at this point, it is very successful. So that is exciting. I put in here notes about the Public Placement Fund and High Needs Fund. So Public Placement Fund is mostly through the Division of Youth Services, Mental Health, and Court appointed. So it's our kids. Our money comes from, our reimbursement money, the $10,000 comes from our kids that are placed at the Juvenile Justice Center. So since we have a teacher out there on staff, we can apply for Public Placement Fund reimbursement to help compensate for the local tax effort that we bill districts. Doesn't provide the amount that we need to cover the teacher and the cost of educating those kids while they are in the Justice Center. So we apply for that every year. And so I submitted that in October. High Needs Fund reimbursement this year was $336,666.38. I am happy to say that that amount is lower, just because we had a couple of our students that are out of district placement age out. They turned 21 or they moved. We do have, I have a chart on here that tells the current students and where they are placement. And then down what we focused on. So in our last 3-year review, my first year as director, I got a very lovely letter from the DESE in the state of Missouri letting me know that we had 24 corrective action plans based off of that were out of compliance, and that we had won a DESE on-site review. And then on top of that, we had our corrective action plans from winning that wonderful prize. But the biggest blessing of all of that is it helped me very quickly identify the things that we needed to work on. And so with that, this year, I had to submit our files. They were due on March 30th. and I don't know if you guys remember March 30th last year, but it was kind of rough. But we had already, process coordinators and I had already done most of our work. So we come in, we submit it, we don't hear back. Usually you hear back by, you usually hear back fairly quickly of, hey, you need to submit some more things because we need additional information. So we didn't hear. We got a letter in September or beginning of October, I can't remember, where we were found 100% in compliance with both finance and documentation.
Good job.
Yes, so if you want to see that report, I brought that just for proof, and I'm going to frame it because, wow, that was, so just an idea of what they looked at. We submitted 20 student files, so shout out definitely has to happen to our district process coordinators who have worked and worked and worked to help support teachers, to sometimes be those people that you just have to be like, no, this has to be right. This has to be right. And that is not a fun job, and it is not a easy job. They have to deliver really tough messages a lot of the time. And they did amazing work through professional development on compliance. We talked about indicators. I made up fake scenario people and made them run through, we role played out student situations to just continue to add professional development to the priority list for our teachers, while also prioritizing that when push comes to shove, educating is the most important thing, but that this was a huge component. So we had 39 indicators measured out of the 224 indicators that can be out of compliance on an IEP. I think there's 224 indicators on each student IEPs. They checked 39 of those that they randomly, well, they say randomly, but they intentionally choose. On 20 student files, we had 780 opportunities to be found out of compliance. So the amount of work and attention that has gone into that is huge, and I'm super thankful that we had that, especially this year because I got really nervous. I'm like, I'm going to have to submit files that we have done during COVID time that we have no idea. So at least now we have the 2 years to start cleaning Form G, the new addition to our IEPs. So shout out to all of those people who did that, because that was a lot of work and a lot of intentional prioritizing of things, that paperwork that we don't want to have to prioritize, and we did it still while continuing to make progress with our kids. So that was awesome.
Does that put you in the top 1% of all?
So Harrisonville has never been found 100% in compliance. I looked back as far as I could see in IMAX. The 3 years before the 24 corrective action plans, before the dark time, we had 9, and then the time before that we had 7, and the time before that it usually runs between 5 and 7. But yeah, there are a lot of districts that I think this year our RPDC consultant said that the districts around our area average 6 corrective action plans. So the 24 that we had was a significant number. I mean, it was very significant, which is probably why we had the on-site, which again was a blessing. Not at the time. I did not feel like it was a blessing at that time. But it did help us out with it, quickly identifying what we needed to work on, and then giving us kind of the foundation to say, all right, this has to change, because I don't ever want to do that again. So work paid off, which is awesome. So what we're working towards this year, we continue to increase and evaluate instructional options for students. I say that of supplemental instruction versus replacement. We are trying to move away from always taking a special ed kid and pulling them out of a classroom and providing replacement instruction. Instead, we supplement that instruction. How can we work to keep kids in a classroom setting and supplement that with where they need with their individual basis? And that is a trick. And it doesn't work out all the time, but it is definitely something that we always work towards. We are aligning instruction to grade level standards, so similar to what Christy Meeks was just saying, we met with a team of elementary. She and I did K-8, actually up through middle school, to where we looked at standards and then we broke them down and prioritized those to say, even though you are a child with a learning disability, in 3rd grade, we can guarantee that you will have exposure to this content standard, even though you may be pulled out of your classroom for the entire reading time. We know that this is going to be taught and this will be addressed, and you may not reach proficiency, but we will continue to the exposure. with that in mindset, that I always go back to, every kid has the right and should have the access to the information being presented to any child at any time. And so how can we get that to our kids that also need that support outside of the classroom? Which we are working towards that as well. We've done a great job working between special education and regular education. We continue support and compliance with the document form changes. COVID brought a lot of additional form changes to our IEP forms. So we just continue that professional development. MTSS, so again, Christy and I work very closely in regards to MTSS. Sometimes I call that forced family fun, where how can we start, even outside of special education, how do we build a structure of when a kid is struggling, we identify that kid, we drill down to the struggle, and we address it. And then we move to the next level if it's not improving, the next level is not improving, and then when does it become that we look for a more restrictive placement such as special education. General information, so one of the things I wanted to spotlight is that is different is we do no longer have any in-district SLPs. The availability of speech and language pathologists for school districts is tough. It is hard to attract and retain those positions. A lot of it is due to teacher pay scale, so they can make a significant amount more in the medical field as opposed to the educational field. And their master's is about 10 hours more than a teacher's master's. So when they come in on our teacher pay scale with a master's, they actually have 10 additional hours typically for their getting their C's for their certification for a speech and language therapist. So that's really most of the changes that have been on there is just the SLP. Current student count, you can see our numbers based off of disability category. I put all of those on there so you can see even the ones that we don't have any kids identified as those special education students, but you can still kind of get an idea of where the most of our kids are falling into that category. Specific learning disabilities includes reading, writing, and math disabilities. Those are the SLD that we refer to. We have 17 early childhood count kiddos. Those are our young child with developmental delays, for a total of 271. Down below you can see our placement in outside of the district, where we have our kids going for more extensive services than what we can provide here. Most of them are lower cognitive, higher behaviors, and I will commend our entire district for the discussion and the intention that we try to serve those kids and provide the services here in district. We do look through the least restrictive continuum before we immediately say, hey, we need to look for an outside placement. And sometimes with teams and kids that can be a little bit more challenging, that's a hard conversation, because I always assume that teachers and administrators are doing what they can to serve our kids, but really looking at, can there be another layer that we can put in place, such as our behavior coach Brittany, or a one-on-one para, or shortened schedule. So we look at all of those things prior to moving kids out of district. I do not have any state assessment data to share from last year. Then kind of overall, we continue to view special education as a service. I continue to view special education as a service as opposed to a placement. I don't want us to look at special education as a place for kids. It is a service we provide a student in our district. Always focusing on least restrictive environment. How can we do our best to make sure that this kid is in the least restrictive place that they can be and still be successful? Exposure to general education curriculum on a regular basis is always going to be a top priority. I truly believe that all of our students have the right to instruction to all standards regardless of their individual level of ability. That grade level curriculum and instruction, as well as the support, showed true. And I don't have the numbers for you right here, but when we were identified as targeted buildings in the subgroup area of special education in middle school and high school, we became pretty intentional on how we are going to address those things in in those two buildings and how we can start in elementary so that we don't replicate this problem 3 years from now when those kids are in middle school. One of the things that we worked on again is providing co-teaching opportunities, getting kids in regular classroom with support from paras or special education teachers, and that paid off for us. We increased in both reading and math from our 18-19 data from MAP testing. But then last year we weren't able to measure to see if we continued that growth. That is all. If you have any questions.
On the current student count, you've got the disability category listed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember us talking a lot about dyslexia and having a dyslexia coordinator, but I don't see that listed. Is that not a disability or?
Yeah, so good question. The state of Missouri does not recognize dyslexia as a special education disability. So the dyslexia coordinator, Mrs. Teeter, she is more under Title I intervention as opposed to special education. Now, we do have students in special education that have dyslexia, but it is not their primary disability. Typically, it can be that they have dyslexia as well as they meet eligibility for a specific learning disability in the area of reading. So they still have to meet that 22-point discrepancy, as opposed to saying, since you have this medical diagnosis of dyslexia, you automatically are eligible for an IEP.
What's the percentage? Is it about 15% of our students?
We're at about close to 11. I think it was like 10.9 last I checked. We are running just a little bit below the state average, which honestly is sometimes a concern for me. That actually 2 years ago is when Christy and I started really honing in on those numbers and looking at why are our numbers not aligning. Christy and I disseminated a whole bunch of data to look at our referral process, how that was going. Are we identifying kids? Is this just a shot in the dark? And I worked closely with process coordinators on looking at that information and how are we getting these referrals, teacher referrals, parent referrals, and what are the success rate of the referrals? When we drilled that down, what we found is the need for an intervention MTSS structure that helps lend itself to identifying those kids that are truly learning disabled or have a special education deficit, as opposed to a skill gap that just needs an intervention, that you then apply the intervention and all of a sudden we see this growth happening. And then we can maybe use another intervention, we see more growth, as opposed to just automatically referring them for special education, them not being found eligible and not having the support to backfill that in. So that's what we continue to work on with that MTSS structure and data teams and looking at our information and reflecting on that.
I think you've done a tremendous job. The fact that 100% on that is absolutely phenomenal.
Thanks.
I appreciate the very evident partnership between the two of you. I think a lot of times people forget that special education, there's curriculum that goes in with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just this, and there's obviously a partnership there that that's part of the reason why that is now 100%. So
right, I would agree completely. And that is, Christy and I always, we bounce ideas off each other all the time, but the value of that is that we bring two very different perspectives. Yeah. Mine's usually right, but and Jill, and West Wing Jill. Yeah, the West Wing, that's where pretty much all of the ideas come from, is the West Wing.
Something like that.
The what?
Something like that.
Yes. Yeah. All the good ideas that come your way. If it's a bad idea, it did not come from us.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Annie.
Thank you.
All right. We need to approve the transportation ridership counts for the 2021 school year.
So move.
Second.
Well, the only information I would provide for you is that the ridership count, of course, is down. It's about half because of the encouragement of our patrons to not use the system if they could avoid it all in any way. So, just to increase social distancing. So.
Yes, driving home, I hit McEwen traffic today at 4. I forgot McEwen gets out, so I just had to make an alternate route to get to my house.
Yeah, but you did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Assessment and evaluation of district programs, pupil transportation, hazardous zones. Paul, do you have anything on that?
So, this is just a state requirement by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that we identify those highways, those major highways that students might have to cross to get to a school. They're eligible then to be picked up by our buses. So that would be, of course, South and Mechanic. So.
Okay, so sorry, guys. Do we need a motion? Ooh, yes.
I move to approve to transport the 277 students who would have to cross hazardous zones as presented.
Second.
Okay. Paul, is this number higher this year? Again, are there more kids walking, or is this a typical number? I can't remember.
Oh, I can't. That I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, so
It's
it's
down a
less.
little bit.
Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, re-entry plan revision. I think we probably better make a.
If we don't have a motion on there, so I think they want to discuss.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. This is completely up to the board, but I will make a recommendation. Thursday, Governor Parsons held a meeting on Facebook Live where he released, in conjunction with the Department of Health and Senior Services, that they were going to change some of the safety guidelines that were put in place that conflict with those provided by the CDC. And those guidelines were that if students were wearing masks, that and the schools had a mask mandate in place, that those students who were exposed would not be considered what we call a close contact. It would not have to be quarantined. I've been a proponent of this for a long time, and several superintendents have advocated. Different groups within the state have sent letters to different state representatives asking for this. I will say that after that afternoon, then we met with the Cass County Health Department to see what their recommendation was. They were at that point okay with it, and we've been talking to them about it on our weekly meeting as well. But then, of course, our cases have continued to spike. They've almost doubled last week in the county. I sent out a survey to our reentry task force, those people that were tasked with over the summer with coming up with these ideas, and did a wonderful job. It was difficult work and getting everybody to kind of guide in the same way. And in that survey, it was about split 50-50 on, and people could see going either way. One of the big concerns that we have is the timing of this particular allowance. With the cases going up dramatically, there's concern that it would look like we're easing our restrictions, and that may not be the safest thing to do. Also, there was, with that allowance from Governor Parsons, it is a mask mandate. And when I talked to the county health department on Monday, their interpretation of mask mandate is no mask breaks. If your students are at recess, they're wearing masks. The only time that they could not wear masks is during lunch, which would be less than 15 minutes, spaced 6 feet apart. We don't do that right now. We can't do that right now. We do it to the best of our ability, but those were other concerns that were raised on the survey as well. So I'm just trying to present you with as much information as I've gleaned from that reentry task force. I think everybody in here knows what my opinion has been all along, because I really think that it would encourage us to wear masks. But having said that, with the concerns that were raised, I just don't think this is the right time. I think we have to continue to revisit it. Talking with other Cass County superintendents, we all kind of have that same opinion that we need to continue to revisit it, but not rush into this because of the growing cases, the acceleration of the cases, I think that's somewhat of the general consensus. Now, you can, of course, with all of this, the COVID restrictions, you're gonna find people clear on this side, and you're gonna find people clear on this side. But I think it's just I don't want the perception that now when things are getting worse that we're easing restrictions. Although I'm not so sure it's easing restrictions. In some cases, it's making the restrictions even more intense. So that's the information I have. Then again, Friday. I had a meeting with our Real World Learning Network through the Kauffman Foundation. It's superintendents from all over the Kansas City area, Kansas side and Missouri side. And on that call this last Friday was all the chief medical officers of the large hospital organizations within the city. They're very concerned about that. They did not agree with that recommendation from Governor Parsons at all. At one point, they emphasized that there was a point last week where there was 95 hospital beds available in the city. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not a medical doctor. I defer completely to people with medical advice. And whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, they went to a lot more school to do that specific thing than I have, and I defer to them completely. So after that conversation, after the case results came out, then on Monday, yesterday, when we met again with Cass County Health Department, Bob Houston was on that call, and Bob Houston emphasized that he wanted us to be together as school districts in Cass County, and I agree with that. And the consensus of that group was we would not recommend that change at this time. So, with that in mind, it's a lot of information, but I wanted to give you everything that I've heard in those meetings that are taking place. And again, I think it's something that we can continue to evaluate, but at this time, I would say that I would recommend that we not do that. We're getting conflicting advice, I guess. You're getting advice from Governor Parsons, who does have medical people supporting his opinion on that too. The Department of Health and Senior Services is led by medical professionals. It is in direct conflict with what the CDC is saying. And so there is that debate. So that's the information I have, and I'll open it to any questions if anybody has any or thoughts. Or
out of the kids that we've had positive at the schools, and we're quarantining more kids because of that one positive, how many of those kids that were contacts have then become positive as well? Do we know that number?
Oh, Jill, do you remember that?
I don't know that we can tell that because you don't know if the kid on quarantine has really been on quarantine and if they've been out.
If they had a community spread or not.
You can't really connect the dots.
But we have
had a lot of kids, haven't had a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Recently, though, like the last few cases of positive have, when I get the text from Jason,
right.
He says, positive case at this school, they've been on quarantine, we'll see if there's any contact. So it's a positive that's been quarantined, but you don't know where they got it. So
I just didn't know what our numbers were with sending those kids home. Is it over-exaggerated, or are we needing to do that, and are we having more positives because of it?
We have some that have been on quarantine, yes. To answer your question, I can't give you the exact amount. Jason does our contact tracing, and he's on quarantine right now, so he's not able to provide that information right now. But we have had some. Now, I will say also with the chief medical officers, one point that they emphasize is the two safest places for kids right now are either in a hospital or a school, because that's not where the spreading is occurring. It's spreading when they go home and they're with their family. They take their masks off and their family's been somewhere else and touch somebody else. And I mean, you look at our big rise now. It's it's not so coincidental that Halloween was just over 14 days ago. So that's when you see these big bumps. And I would say after Thanksgiving, you're going to see another bump.
So in the CDC, some additional information related to it, aren't they going to send somebody possibly to Missouri and study, and then think about that mask, if you're wearing the mask at school, the quarantining, somebody tests positive, you have a mask mandate, then they don't need to do that. So there is additional information coming from the CDC.
And I haven't heard that, Doug. So there are other states where mask to mask orders in place. Iowa is one state that I know of that did that previous to us. I know I have a friend who's a superintendent in South Dakota. They don't quarantine if there's mask to mask and one's contact. So there are other locations in other states that are doing this. It's not like Missouri jumped the gun on this one. So
and isn't it? I know I've heard from people in the public that they feel like they're wearing their mask in school, they're doing what we've asked them to do, and then they still get quarantined, so now they're being punished for doing what we asked them to do.
I don't see how they feel like they're being punished. We were very clear in the very beginning that this was how we thought. Again, because none of us are medical doctors either. This is the safest way to do it. Is it inconvenient? Sure, it's inconvenient when your kid is quarantined and they're not positive. So yeah, one of my managers at the bank is having to take off work, and they're short-staffed now as it is because somebody's on vacation. We got to figure that out, but she's got to stay home with her kid. So yeah, it stinks, but that's where the country is at right now. So I don't know why anybody. I feel for them. My kid was quarantined. I truly feel for them, but there's no punishment there for
they're getting
virus.
punished for doing what they're supposed to do. If you wear your mask,
but the mask is nobody says the mask is 100%. Nobody
you're
ever
supposed
says
to be
this
okay
is 100%.
from the quarantining. That's the whole point, right?
No.
Well, it's all layers of protection. There's no guarantee on anything.
Right.
It's layers of protection that we've tried to, I'll go back to when we originally presented the reentry plan. I talked about layers of protection. There's nothing that we can do that's going to prevent this 100, except lockdown, stay in your house, and never go anywhere, never talk to anybody, that's the only way you're going to keep from getting it. Again, we're an arm in this realm. We're an arm of the health department. We're not. When we quarantine, it's not the school quarantining people. We're quarantining on behalf of the health department because they don't have the staff to do it. So originally, when this was set up, they were going to contact trace on all this. They don't have the staff to do it now. It was bad before. It's really bad now. They're taking a lot. They're taking days sometimes to do the contact tracing. So I'm concerned because each school in the county is an arm of the health department in this sense. And so we help them with that contact tracing. When we go on break for Thanksgiving, they're not going to have us to do that. Nobody's going to be wearing their mask when they're around Cousin Billy and Susie, and that's when it's going to grow. It's just a fact of life. So,
and I'll say I did agree with what you're saying, Bing, before I talked to one of the nurses at the hospital who deals with this daily. So she clearly wears the mask, goggles, face shield, all the stuff, and she's positive. So that shows right there that, she knows exactly what to do. That's her background. She doesn't, go out and do things, and she tested positive a couple days ago. So she recommended that we do not change it, that we leave it. If you're within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, even if you're wearing a mask, you quarantine.
Well, see, I think that's the point that you were making is if we require the mask at all times, that's more restrictive than what we're doing now.
Right, it is.
So why is anybody thinking that we would be loosening our standards?
Because we would keep people in school that have been exposed by the CDC definition. We would be keeping kids in school that have been exposed by the CDC definition.
My concern with and I think this is just a matter of when the kid gets tested, when the test comes back positive, all of that. Sometimes there's like 5 or 6 days from the last contact. So that kid may be out of school, but like you're not contacted for 5 or 6 days. There's nothing that can be done about that, is there? I mean,
No, and
it's
getting
truly
worse.
a matter of timing.
It's getting worse too, Tina, just because of the lack of people. I mean,
Okay.
Are we comfortable, satisfied with the results we're getting today? Granted, we'd like to have more substitute teachers, but given everything, are we happy with the results that where we're at?
well, that's a good question, Doug. It really is. Our goal, and I talked to Ian and Christy today about this, our goal is we're educators. We want kids in school. We know our philosophy is the best place for kids to learn is in school. It's not virtually. I'll tell you right now, it's not virtually. The best place for kids to learn is in school when they can be with their peers, with their teacher right in front of them. And so we're going to continue to fight for that. And we're going to we have to quarantine a whole classroom. We'll quarantine a whole classroom, but it's going to save the rest of the kids in that building. And there's just a trickle down effect. So because we're a small community, if we quarantined a whole building, for example, which we've been close, we've been on the line where we've had thinking about quarantining the building. If we quarantine a whole building, then we've got teachers who have kids in that building who are in another building. Now they have to stay at home because their kids are so small. So now we got to find more. It's a rolling mess, is what it is. So I really think that we're doing the best that we can. Yes. And I know that our teachers are extremely stressed, our staff, all the staff, not just our teachers, our paras, our secretaries. I mean, probably one of the biggest groups that's affected is our paras because they're in a lot of different classrooms. We've had several paras have been quarantined multiple times. So we are doing the best that we can, but it is very stressful on them. I know it is. And I feel for all of them.
Well, if we're satisfied with the results, why would we go and put potentially more exposure on those people, especially coming up Thanksgiving, Christmas? Maybe we get the Christmas break, people go home, they behave themselves somewhat. Maybe we get on the front side of it as opposed to being where we're at now. Maybe we don't. Right. But I don't see a reason to change right now.
Right. And there's been a lot of discussion in other schools about we've got schools around us who have closed high schools until, Adrian and Sherwood both closed their high schools until after Thanksgiving. My concern about that, again, is listening to those chief medical officers, the best place for kids, the safest place for kids is in school with a mask on. And so when I talk to our building administrators, most of them, I won't say all of them, but most of them tell me to a person, hey, we'll fight for keeping these kids here. We'll fight for keeping our teachers here. We'll do everything that we can to keep them here. So, that's I think what we need to try to do.
Is there any time frame on this thing from the governor? Like,
no.
If you wait so long, you can't
no
get them part. Okay.
No. People are altering their reentry plans all the time. It's a moving.
Do we see more? We're coming upon the end of the semester, so now we're going to open it up to those that were at home, if they can come in, and those that were here maybe can go back. Do we see any wave leaving or a wave coming in?
We saw, what was the increase, Jill?
Yeah,
Jill's got that survey data.
So we've had 1,300 responses so far. Not a little over half of our kids have filled out the survey, or parents have filled them out for the kids. And there is 60 kids that are saying they're going to move from virtual to in-person. Okay, 60. That's across all grades, okay, K-12. And you have 19 that want to move from in-person to virtual. So a net 40-ish.
41.
So more
right
coming back to in-person.
Right now.
Right now.
Because they get to switch at semester. Okay.
My opinion is we keep on business exactly as we're doing now. Is there a right answer? There's really not. We're all making this up as we go. Everybody is. So I think what we're doing is working the best that it can. If we're going to reevaluate, we might reevaluate that for the next semester. I wouldn't necessarily change it in the middle of this one
Good
or
point.
toward the end of this one.
Especially when we're in such a.
Yep, with the holidays coming up,
Does a mandatory mask mandate, like where they have to wear it all day, every day, does that help us at all? I mean, do you think that would even help?
like doing what
our
we're doing
situation?
and a mandatory mask.
Yeah, like all day wearing it, no breaks. Do you think that helps us out at all, or just delays?
Yeah.
The kids are still going to go home, come back to school. Like, does that help us at all?
I think it would help our in-school transmission if there is any, which I still think is minimal. But you're right. When they go home, they're taking the mask off. It's community spread is really what's getting everybody. And I, listening to the teachers again, survey responses, trying to monitor kids wearing the masks properly. It's not just about wearing a mask. It's about wearing the mask properly over your nose. I mean, my own son, last night we were at the cross country banquet, and Coach Gibbs did a great job of separating. He had a table for families that were spread apart, socially distanced. Well, Jackson gets up and he's got his mask, and I got to tap him on the shoulder and say, "Put your mask up over your nose." When we went out to do the board, so and I don't think he's doing it on purpose, honestly, but maybe he's kind of ornery, so he could be. But that's a high school kid. That's a 16-year-old kid. What are the 5 and 6-year-olds doing?
I think they're doing
My
better.
kids were, yeah.
Might be, yeah.
My kids
Yeah.
love
Tell
it.
'em. Yeah,
Like, we make it a
they're
game,
doing-
basically. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids are good with it, but I mean,
8-year-olds are doing
I
fine.
like it. My wife's
I feel
kinda
like they have to
crazy.
remind me sometimes.
Are the teachers wearing masks and face shields in the classrooms?
Some of them are. Some of them are wearing full PPE. We've got
Really?
teachers wearing full PPE, and they've got a shower curtain. We've got to remember we've got some staff members that are highly at risk. I mean, cancer survivors and other things, and so
But the very minimum is every teacher wearing a mask. That's
that
my
I've seen
question.
they are. I mean, I've not seen a teacher not wearing a mask. So
Okay, I just want to be sure if the kids are wearing them, the teachers certainly should be wearing them.
right.
It'll be over one day.
Hey, good news on
Tell
the
myself
vaccine.
that every day.
Good news on the vaccine front, folks. I mean, I heard somewhere today that teachers might get the vaccine in March, is what they're saying. So that'd be great.
All right. So do we need to make a motion
not
at this point to
changing
keep it the way it's? I mean, we're keeping it.
Change anything.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, let's move on to the strategic plan. After Paul gets.
Paul needs a mask break.
All right, it's not the mask that's doing it. It's the cold. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our focus on instruction. You've heard two of our ladies do a great job tonight and really providing the backbone of our instruction for our district. So as we look through our strategic plan, we try to concentrate on learning, because that is something that we can control. Although we can't control the virus, we feel like we can control the learning and consistency in learning. So we also are trying to be responsive to those needs of students who aren't just the ones that are here in person, but we've looked at how we can improve the academic provider, if you will, for our virtual kids, our distant learning. And so Christy has done a lot of work with the group to review Edgenuity, which is a different product than Odysseyware. So Odysseyware, the reason that we went with Odysseyware was because it was a known quantity. We'd used it successfully in different areas of the district prior to the shutdown, and so we knew it. We knew we could transition to it easily because of that knowledge. Well, Edgenuity is a product from the same company that we feel like is a little bit better, having reviewed it. it's not as reading intensive. So we've had a lot of concerns from, I wouldn't say a lot, we've had concerns from parents regarding Odyssey, where it's reading intensive. So it's difficult for kids who have low reading level abilities, honestly. And so that's one of the areas that we've reviewed and we feel like we can improve. And so we're looking to transition second semester, right, Christy, with Edgenuity. And we feel like it gives more support for our students. It'll also take some of the burden off of our teachers, because right now with Odyssey, where the tutor, if you will, for that is through our own staff, and it's really been burdensome at the secondary level, in particular middle school and high school. And so we feel like Edgenuity has some integrated assistance there for kids too, and support. So that's one of the things that we think we feel like we can improve. Again, I just want to re-emphasize this, that our philosophy is that we want kids to be here, but that doesn't mean that we're going to ignore those kids that aren't here, and it's our job to provide the best academic environment that we can for those kids too. So we're continuously looking at how we can improve that. But I really appreciate the support of the medical profession when they say the best place for kids to be is in school. That really helps, because early on, we didn't hear that. We heard a concern from the media, from government, that once schools open up, this is going to be worse. Well, in a sense, they're right, but it's because of the community spread. It's not because of what's happening in schools, and everybody's seeing that, and so that's good news for us. We talk about, and this is kind of enveloped in the strategic plan, but gating metrics are something that we talk about with when do you know it's right to close a building, and when's the county come in and say, well, you got to close the school down. And so we continue to fight that. But one of the gating metrics early on was the positivity rate. So that positivity rate, it's considered a pandemic when you have a disease that inflicts 5% a positive test, and so when you get to 10%, it's really they told us that's the level of concern that's really an issue. And so we've gone above that once and come back down under that. That's a statistic that you can manipulate, though, because if your sample size is low and you have a high positivity rate, if you only test 2 people and they're both positive, well, you're going to have a 100% positivity rate, but your sample size is so small in a county of 160,000 people. Well, now, so they kind of diverted from that as a gating metric, but now they're starting to test a lot more people. So this last week, on our call, they told us that they tested over 350 people in Harrisonville. So that's quite a good sample size compared to where we were, because people just weren't getting tested. Now it's becoming easier to test. More people are testing. And so that positivity rate, though, it was higher this last week than it's been since we've seen it, even with the higher number of tests. So the positivity rate was 22.5 this last week. So that means 22.5% of the people that were testing positive. So we've heard all along that if 100% of the people are tested, that positivity rate might go down because your sample size goes up. But that the testing number is going up and the positivity rate is going up too. That's not a good thing. 10.7% of our students, according to the Cass County Health Department, Jill might have better statistics. Usually she does. But according to the Cass County Health Department, 10.7% of our students were out on quarantine last week. So that kind of gives you. So even though we see this big number, relatively speaking, 10% is not horrible. So Doug, you asked where we are we comfortable with that? So, at one time somebody asked me when we were talking about weather or the flu. Well, this is back when the days of the flu, when schools would talk about closing if their flu numbers were too high, and what would that gating metric look like? Well, there's a number which is based on your state aid, essentially, that you look at, and you can determine, well, it's usually about 75% of your students. If that gets to that number, you need to go and not have school as a district. So if you think of that in comparison, at such a high rate, we're still at 10%. which puts us at 90% of our students are still here. That's a good thing. So that's, even though it's so high, I think that's a good thing for us.
Even with 10% that's not in the building, most of that 10% has virtual learning at home once they get quarantined.
Right.
So I would be concerned about that 10% if there was no
point.
education happening in that time
Good
frame,
point.
but there's really no lag.
Right. Well,
At least for junior high and high school.
Right.
I know K through 5 is a little different.
right. So, yeah, I would agree. I think we've gotten better in that sense. You're right, Tina. Now that we have a plan in place to teach kids when they go home, the education for them is better. It's a lot harder for our staff, and so we continue to look for ways that we can try to improve that. I think Edgenuity will help that too. So, and just as a final bit of information, so in our policies, in our leave policies with employees, it does talk about the fact that that if it's a hardship on the district, that we can decline somebody from taking a leave day. I think we might start seeing that happen. So, that can lead to all kinds of issues, I know, but we've got to have people here. And I know it's hard, but we got to have people here. It is a hardship on the district. It's a hardship. You're creating more of a problem with the other staff members if you choose not to be here. So that's something we're going to put a little more teeth into and might get a little kickback on. So that's what I have for you.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay, how about construction management update?
Okay. So I included a couple of the, for your information, a couple of the presentations that we've gone through. So each week we get a PowerPoint presentation like this, and it shows us the updates and their plans and those things. So I wanted just to include you and show you where we were at. The plans for the CCC are about a week ahead of those for ECC in the middle school and HES. You can kind of see on those the different options that we're looking at. Of course, cost comes into that a little bit. So I talked with Jason and I met with Justin today from Hollis & Miller, who really has a nice spreadsheet, and he just shared that with me today, and I'll share that with you all too. But it goes through our cost estimates based on the 2016 needs assessment, and then where we're projecting at right now. And so they're doing a really good job. The thing that's different, so on Newkirk and Novak, they're going to give us that. You remember they talked about the guaranteed maximum pricing, the GMP. They're going to give us that on the hard cost. So there's soft costs that's built in from architects, drilling, third-party testing, all of those kind of things that Hollis & Miller doesn't build in there. So they have to work together with the architects. And I think Hollis & Miller did a really good job of developing a spreadsheet that incorporates the hard cost with the GMP and the soft cost that's associated. So we'll get a true picture of what those costs are going to be, how that compares to their estimates in 2016. And now we've made some changes to those things too. So obviously the issue at the middle school was was a lot more than what we had originally budgeted. So we have to kind of move some things around. And so but both of those presentations are in there. I just wanted to share that with you, so you kind of knew what we did when we go through those meetings. Let's see. The second document, that's the first document there, is ECC. I really want you, if you get a chance, to look at ECC and what they're proposing there, and it really looks nice. I think it's got a really nice facade and a really welcoming entrance to that area. It really does look good. And then the way that the parking lot's set up, you can see that in there too, and how the bus lines would look. And then the second document outlines the options for the CCC. And just a reminder on CCC, it includes the higher education grant for the nursing enhancement or the nursing program. which is that it'll be over by that south entrance now. There'll be a small building there for that. So that's a separate grant from the bond. So that'll be pulled out. But you can really see how those things are coming together. And then so some of that, like the greenhouse, we can write an enhancement grant for the greenhouse, the welding booths. We can write grants for that, so it'll share the cost on that too. So that might help us a little bit on the cost estimates for those too. But when I do share that spreadsheet with you, one thing I would point out is you'll see where what they're estimating right now is we're over budget on it's specified as the ECC, but that's where they put all that remediation work into. So that's why that's all in there. So when I share that spreadsheet with you, and I'll do that in my update this week, then you'll see where that's at. But that's any questions about construction?
Have they mentioned difficulty in getting any supplies, or it costing us more to get some of the supplies?
They have not. And so they've already started building their their hard costs on the construction side. Newkirk and Novak has, so they have not done that, and they know where we're at. And so so if you recall that the 2016 number was higher than what we bonded for. The committee recommended less, so we didn't reach our ceiling on our bonded capacity, and so they're working on honing some things down too, and we'll have to hone some things down. It's a little more difficult because we're doing a lot of remodel, and so when they get into stuff like what we ran into in the middle school, you're going to see costs go up, and so we'll have to make some value engineering at some points. And so, I think they calculated for that, Tina. So yeah, there is going to be cost. Steel's got to be higher because they can't even get an appliance if you try to right now. So.
Do we get to make the choice on what the CCC is going to look like, or is that the CCC that's going to do that?
They'll make a recommendation, and we'll bring it to you. Yeah, we'll tell you the whys and the hows, but yeah, that's
because there's one with like a tower, and then there's one that's called Synergy.
They've got a recommendation.
They've got a recommendation.
Yeah,
okay.
I tend to leave that up to the building leaders typically. I mean, I look at them. I look at the dollar signs, and they look at the pretty stuff. So,
because I remember at the last meeting you give us like A and B, and which one we like.
Yeah,
better,
and I'm just trying to show you the progress of what they're doing. But all the buildings are doing a really good job of working through that, and they have good insight on why they're doing specific things, and so it's a really good process. So.
I did notice on the CCC drawings, and unless I'm mistaken, it looked like every proposal for the CCC, the greenhouse was outside the perimeter.
They're using that as a wall. So they as much as possible they want to use the buildings as the fencing, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess and it wasn't specific as to what kind of material the greenhouse would be. I guess that would play a part in whether it would be an acceptable perimeter.
Right.
And then the budget for the CCC was way less than the cost already for these proposals.
Right.
So how are they going to adjust all that? I mean, they've already gone over budget just with the proposed drawings of more than one suggested drawing. So how are they going to rein that in?
So I'll give you an example. So the nursing is one example. So we knew you have $470,000 to spend. So they reduce the square footage. In essence, they start squeezing it down. So
because I was disappointed to see that. I'm like, look, you know what the budget is, so don't give something that's already over budget before we even start.
They don't. And they talk about things in phases too, Nancy. So if they know, we give them the vision of what we want. So if we talk about we want to add a program at the CCC, and then we talked a lot about adding an HVAC program at the CCC. And so they look at that to see, okay, we know eventually you want to do that. Can you do that with the money you have available?
Okay.
That's what they'll start with. So.
Right. That's good, because I was discouraged when I saw that. I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they're doing a really good job of squeezing that around too. So and Justin asked today how he should present that to the board. Does he present it as an overall picture, or does he go, location by location. And I said, well, you kind of have to do both, in my opinion, because it's important to know. Well, at ECC, it shows that we're over budget, but it's showing that because it's pulling the middle school piece in there, because that's kind of together right there. But you're under budget other places, so it's good to see the whole picture, so you can see where it comes together and how the total budget's created. So, and again, you don't get the true hard cost GMP until the bids are let.
Right.
So that's when we'll get the full on decision. We have to start value engineering. So
I didn't understand the middle school kitchen thing at all.
So
And I figure whenever they're here, they can explain it. But
they will. So we're expanding the cafeteria. So the plan is to take out the guidance counselor's office that are right there and make that cafeteria bigger and move them up into an empty classroom and develop that empty classroom. So when you walk it in the middle school, you walk in that door on your left, there's a classroom right there that we can move somewhere else, and we'll make that into process coordinator and counselor's offices right there. And then you'll have a reception area right there too. So that's going to be a transition there. And so that area will become part of the cafeteria down below, and there'll be a separating wall there. And then the kitchen itself. So part of it is we need to expand to the north there. There's a closet, and so I know they're trying to work on flow and trying to make sure, because right now.
it looked like was one of the proposals having a line go through the kitchen or something? Because
there already is a line that goes through the kitchen.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, that's how they get their.
Yeah, it's been years since I've been there, so.
Yeah. They go in that door on the north side, they go through, and they pick up their food, and they come out the south door.
But one of the proposals, it looked like they're still doing that.
Well, there was one proposal that had 2 lines coming this way, and we told them that's not going to work because you got to cross traffic to do that, because you've got kids coming from the north crossing this first line. So that is an issue that they're working through right now. So.
That's fine. I'll just wait.
No, that's good. Good question. So it's fun. I love construction. It's good stuff. So.
And then there is going to be a construction seminar or a contractor seminar. Paul wasn't able to attend the meeting with the group today, but the chamber and the city and the school district are going to work together to get education out to our local contractors on the bidding process, what they need to bid. So that will be December the 16th. It's Wednesday. Be at the community center in the CAS room from 6 to 8:30, and we'll provide a little meal at that as well. So it's not a public meeting.
Right.
It is for local contractors only. So if you know anybody, kind of spread the word, and then we'll probably get with Jill. They're going to create a graphic piece for us to start advertising and get out there. So we're excited for that.
All right, any other questions or comments? I like progress. That's good.
Yeah.
Board policy F-140P. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, establish date and time for personnel performance review for December.
We need a vote on that.
No,
You said information.
next month. This one was information.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We just put that in there. I'm sorry.
You're all right.
Yep.
I was on top of it that time.
You were. Sorry. Sickness going to my brain.
We need a motion on this.
I move to establish December 15th at 5:30 p.m. prior. Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong one. Is this?
No, you're
You're right.
Is that right? Okay. Prior to the regular board meeting for the personnel performance review.
Second.
Second.
Brittany got you.
Oh, Brittany?
You can third it if you want, baby.
Third.
Do we have any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Copier printer lease. Do we have any updates on that you need to?
Kathy, you want to talk about it?
Kathy?
I kind of gave you some background as to where we were with that copier lease. We had the original 4. We extended through board approval for another 14 months. The copiers were still in really good shape, so we did it another 14 months. We feel like now is the time that we need to do do something with it. We took a look at cooperative purchase agreements and what Sumner One Group out of Lenexa offers. Well, they are actually included on the Association of Educational Purchasing Agencies Cooperative. The equipment they have, the Kyocera and the Konica Minoltas, are the equipment that we have now. So it's going to be familiar for the staff. And also, they are able to offer us the lease agreement. And that's who we had our lease through before and all the time that we've had them. We just are really happy with their service. Takes one call, they're out within the hour most of the time. And as you saw, we'll be seeing a savings of about $14,816 over the 4-year period. And they're just, I have the total cost comparison on there if you wanted to see that. They just kind of recapped everything I just said. Questions on the co-op? We've got Paul, we had a review with them, Mike Diggs and Paul and I. They went through, gave us all the information on the co-op. So
it's a different outfit than we had previously, or it's
Nope,
the same outfit?
same group.
It's the same outfit and they're giving it to us for less?
yes.
Yep. It always happens. It's weird. With copiers, it always happens. I don't know why.
And they're new machines?
Yes,
Yeah.
new machines.
Great.
And also, we'll be replacing just the minimum number of printers. We don't have very many individual printers because we have the combination copier scanner printers.
Right.
So they will be replacing those on this as well, and the maintenance agreement is in there as well.
Great. Well, that's wonderful.
It is, yeah, it's a good deal.
And so this is for how many?
4 years.
4 years? Okay, thanks.
Do you think we're going to get bit on those overages on the copies? Because the chamber runs into that quite a bit. So
There's overages.
the savings we have get eat up sometimes with the overages that we have when we have to pay for the color and the black and white.
We're trying to educate, and also we get a monthly report. Mike sends those out. Paul gets to see those as well. They do talk to the principals about that and try to rein everyone back in. And we'll make a concerted effort again to start the new contract, make sure everybody's aware. And with the one-to-one devices, we should be seeing less. Now, we did at that first 4 years, we did really work towards it, and it kind of got away from us. So, we'll start out again and see if we can.
We need a motion real quick before we ask any more questions on that. Can we get a motion?
I move to authorize district administration to enter into a lease agreement with Sumner Group for a term of 48 months in the amount of $64,610.16 annually, or $5,384.16 monthly for district-wide copiers.
Second.
Okay, now, if there's any other questions, we can hit them.
So part of that response too being, so they're not going to charge us more for our copies, either for our overages. The overages cost actually went down, didn't it? Our overage cost is going down, so it's not.
Is and just out of curiosity, is our copiers, ours have worked, you have to scan your ID.
Yep.
So they know who's.
That's new. We put our code in now, then they're going to add the scanner, so you just scan your door key, so.
So if I want to sneak in and make 1,000 copies, I can't do it.
You have to stop
but
that,
it's just going to be
Tina.
on your badge.
Track it down.
Dang it. All right. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I wanted to say MOCAT, but I wasn't sure that was right, so, okay. MOCAT resolution. Anybody want to fill us in on that?
Well, as you remember, last month or the month before, we approved working with PMA Financial Network to invest our bond proceeds in. Well, what they've done now, they're partnering with UMB, and they're seeing that they're going to get a better yield. We will see more interest paid on our idle funds. So, of course, in order to get that opened, we need a resolution authorizing the district to participate in the MOCAT investment program. And then we need the instrument of adoption, which allows the district to participate in an intergovernmental cooperation agreement. What that is just saying that they have, there's a group of intergovernmental cities, school districts that use the same, and we just need to say that the district is willing to be a part of that group.
Okay, we need a motion.
Move to adopt the MOCAT resolution authorizing the district participation in the MOCAT investment program and execution of the instruments of adoption to participate in the ICA.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. This is a roll call vote.
Nancy?
Yes.
Brittany? Yes. Doug?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Bing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we need a motion for CCC Auto Mechanic Education Simulator. No, is somebody filling us in on that?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. So through the base performance grant that the CCC gets, they are wanting to purchase this device for the Autumn program. It is a single source provider. That's why we're not bidding it, and it's got the information there too that tells you why it's single source. So it's a very specific device. So
now we need a motion.
I'll make a motion as recommended on
Hacker. No. You're not getting away with that.
Second. Good. All right.
Brittany.
All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this?
I was reading somewhere that they're getting a grant for this.
They get a grant every year, CTE Base and Performance Grant. Yeah.
So the amount that we're approving is minus the grant, basically.
Well,
So
we get
grant takes care of
reimbursed.
something, and then
We'll get reimbursed.
we're going to get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how those CT grants work.
Part of the request for that
Gotcha.
money.
Yeah.
So really, we're not.
We get it in June typically, or
Okay,
late
that's what I
spring.
wanted to know.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, liability, property, and casualty insurance proposal.
So I'm very excited about this. I'm being honest here. So music is the Missouri United School Insurance. I call it cooperative, but it's council. Thank you, Kathy. And so it's a group of schools who got together and decided that they were going to self-insure, essentially, for property and casualty. And I've always had a really good relationship with music, and things that I like about music in particular. First of all, the cost is a huge savings for us. Even if you just look at the deductible alone, it's going to save. But then if you look at the overall cost, if you were to compare what their cost would be to what we're currently paying, we would save. But Kathy's been working with our current group, and they've told her that we're going to anticipate a 20% increase. So then she did a nice job. Kathy did a nice job of comparing what that would be if we see that increase too. So it's quite a significant savings for us. Some of the things that I like about music, I mentioned the deductible is huge. Also, they allow you to essentially to select your own legal representation. So that's a big plus in my opinion. It always has been. And so we've looked at other vendors, including our current vendor, and they don't let you do that. They pick the attorney and they tell you who's coming in. It is all schools. It's not. There's not other municipalities or anything involved in that. So they cater to schools. So they're very. And it's I think Kathy put in here over 400 schools in Missouri. You think about that's 4/5 of the school districts in the state of Missouri belong to music. It's a good program. So.
Didn't we used to have it with them? We've never have. Okay.
I thought we'd talked about it before.
We've talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've mentioned them and talked about it, but we've not had them since I've been here.
Okay.
Do we know how many claims we've had insurance-wise? Like property-wise? Recently?
recently, not many, but
Yeah.
we had the, 2 years
Insurance
ago,
guys,
we
yeah.
had all the roof
Yeah.
problems with
With
the
the hail.
hail, which
Yeah.
was over $1 million.
That's probably our most recent.
Yes, so that's where we're seeing the bump.
And is our deductible per location or per policy?
So you're saying if you had a hail event and it affected all of it? No, it'd be the one
One.
for on a,
Have we
on
thought
a
of
hail
bumping that deductible higher than 1,000?
What's that?
Have we thought about bumping the deductible up higher than 1,000?
That's their standard.
You can't with the pool.
Yeah.
The pool is set.
That's what I thought.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll make the motion to authorize district administration to complete the calendar year 2021 application process to move the property casualty and workers' compensation coverage to music with first year combined premium of $380,047.
Second.
Good
job, Deb.
Do we have more discussion on that?
I was going to ask Paul one question. I read through some of that, and then I was looking. I was like Fort Zumwalt, south schools down south, but then I did see there's a couple places up north. Somebody in Oak Park.
Belton School District joined last year with music. Park Hill. So Dr. Coward, who's the superintendent at Park Hill, is on the board of directors for music. Yes.
Yeah, and there's Blackford out of Graham, so small school. Up
Right.
there.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of small schools. Yeah.
So I was hoping there was some representation on our side of the
Right.
state or north, so it wasn't south and east, or
Yeah.
I didn't know if I'd create any issues or not, but.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?